Some people wake up with hair that falls neatly into place. Others have loose waves that seem to move with a life of their own. And some are blessed with tight curls that spring back no matter how much they are brushed. Human hair comes in an incredible variety of textures, and this simple difference has shaped fashion, identity, and beauty standards across cultures for thousands of years. But what actually determines whether your hair is straight, wavy, or curly? Is it something on the outside of the hair, or is the pattern built into every strand from the moment it begins to grow? And why can two people in the same family have completely different hair textures? Today, we're exploring what makes human hair straight, wavy, or curly right here on History of Simple Things. At first glance, hair seems like one of the simplest parts of the human body. Once it emerges from the scalp, it is made of dead cells packed tightly together. You can cut it without pain, dye it, curl it, or shave it off entirely. But every strand begins its life inside a living structure beneath the skin known as a hair follicle. This tiny organ contains blood vessels, specialized cells, and chemical signals that carefully construct each strand from the root upward. The cells in the follicle produce a tough protein called keratin. This same protein forms your fingernails and the outer layer of your skin. Keratin is strong, flexible, and highly resistant to wear, which is why hair can survive brushing, washing, and exposure to the environment. As new cells are created, older cells are pushed upward. They die, harden, and become the visible strand of hair extending from your scalp. The texture of your hair is largely determined before the strand even emerges. The most important factor in hair texture is the shape of the hair follicle. If the follicle is perfectly round and symmetrical, it tends to produce straight hair. The keratin is distributed evenly, so the strand grows in a consistent direction. If the follicle is slightly oval, the hair bends gently as it grows, producing wavy hair. If the follicle is strongly curved or flattened, the hair grows unevenly and twists along its length, resulting in curls or coils. You can think of the follicle like the nozzle of a machine. The shape of the opening determines the form of what comes out. Just as toothpaste can emerge in different shapes depending on the nozzle, hair takes on the shape dictated by its follicle. This means your hair texture is not added later. It is built into the strand from the very beginning. The follicle determines the general shape, but the internal chemistry of hair helps lock that shape in place. Hair is made of long chains of keratin proteins connected by chemical bonds. Among the strongest of these are disulfide bonds, which link sulfur atoms in the amino acid cysteine. These bonds act like molecular bridges, holding keratin strands together. In straight hair, the distribution of these bonds is relatively balanced across the strand. In curly hair, the bonds are arranged unevenly, creating tension that causes the strand to bend and spiral. The more asymmetrical the structure, the curlier the hair tends to be. This is also why chemical treatments such as perms and relaxers work. They temporarily break disulfide bonds and reform them in new positions, allowing hair to take on a different shape. The blueprint for your hair texture is written in your genes. Your DNA contains instructions that influence follicle shape, keratin production, and the proteins involved in forming hair. Many genes contribute, which is why hair texture is considered a complex trait rather than the result of a single gene. One important gene associated with hair texture is TCAH, which helps organize keratin fibers inside the hair shaft. Variations in this and other genes can affect whether hair is more likely to be straight or curly. Because multiple genes are involved, children often inherit a mixture of traits from both parents. One sibling may have straight hair while another has curls, even though they come from the same family. Hair texture is one of the most visible examples of how small genetic differences can produce dramatic physical variation. Hair texture is not limited to only straight or curly. Many people have hair that falls somewhere in between. Wavy hair forms when follicles are moderately oval and the distribution of keratin and disulfide bonds is only slightly uneven. As a result, the hair bends gently instead of forming full spirals. Wave patterns can vary greatly. Some people have subtle bends near the ends, while others develop pronounced S-shaped waves throughout the strand. Environmental factors such as humidity, haircut, and product use can make waves appear more or less defined. This middle ground highlights that hair texture exists on a spectrum rather than in separate categories. Although genetics provide the foundation, hair texture is not always fixed for life. Many babies are born with one texture and develop another as they grow. Hormonal changes during puberty, pregnancy, and aging can alter follicle behavior and keratin production. Some people find that their hair becomes curlier during adolescence, while others notice their curls loosen over time. Medical treatments, nutrition, and certain health conditions can also influence hair growth and texture. Even so, the basic follicle structure remains the primary determinant of whether hair grows straight, wavy, or curly. The difference between straight, wavy, and curly hair begins in microscopic follicles hidden beneath your scalp. Their shape determines how keratin is laid down, while chemical bonds inside the hair shaft lock that pattern into place. Genetics provides the instructions, and environmental factors like humidity reveal the design. Straight hair emerges from round follicles. Wavy hair grows from slightly oval follicles. Curly hair develops when follicles are more curved and asymmetrical, causing strands to twist and spiral. What seems like a simple cosmetic trait is actually the product of intricate biology, chemistry, and evolution. Each strand is a tiny record of your genetic inheritance and your species' long history of adaptation. So the next time you brush your hair, struggle with frizz, or admire someone else's curls, remember that every bend, wave, and coil began deep under the skin, shaped by structures too small to see but powerful enough to define one of the most recognizable features of the human body. And that is what makes human hair straight, wavy, or curly. A beautiful combination of follicle shape, protein chemistry, and genetic instructions working together to create the endless variety of hair textures seen across humanity. One simple strand carrying a surprisingly complex story. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.